but it's time to move on. We got to talk about some UNC basketball before we get out of here. Obviously, we all know what happened at Florida State. That 33-point loss, an atrocity as by any Tar Heel fan's estimation. But they did beat Virginia Tech on the road by 14. I don't think they played particularly well in that game, but do you think that woke them up a little bit? Do you think that loss will end up being good for this team?
Yeah, I think it will. The Florida State loss was terrible. I mean, the UNC basketball team, they never should have been in that position. They should never have been down 10, much less 20 or 30. But I do think that it woke the team up. You saw in the second half against Virginia Tech, Harrison Barnes turned it on, and that was the big thing for me, is that he took over that game and really played to the level that everyone has expected him to play from since the day that he stepped foot on campus here. And if Harrison Barnes can play to that level, game in and game out, and it wasn't just one 20-minute stretch that he dominated a game like that, then this Carolina team is going to be fine and even better than they were coming into the year.
I mean, I was I was definitely disappointed in the Florida State game. I mean, that's without being said.
Horrified.
There's not an adjective in there in the world for that. Because the problem is we can't win on the road. I mean, we beat Virginia Tech after being down at halftime. That's a problem. What I like to see was after halftime, Virginia Tech scored 7 points in the first 10 minutes of the second half. That's the kind of defense I expected to see. And why wasn't, I mean, Florida State's really scoring 90 points on us. Like, they're a defensive-oriented team. I mean, if we lost 55-53, that's fine. But the fact that we allowed 90 points, it's just inexcusable.
Make it any better that they beat Duke at Cameron the other day?
Absolutely.
Yeah, it definitely made it a little bit better. I mean, I think anytime you take that away from the Duke fans being able to throw that in your face, I mean, that works out. And it makes Florida State look a little bit more legit.
See, I don't know. In my estimation, I don't think it made it any better. A 33-point loss to an 11-6 team or whatever it was is inexcusable at any point in time, no matter what the team is. Even if, Syracuse had been 10-10 instead of 20-0. We played them. They beat us by 33. That's still inexcusable. No matter how talented the team, a loss like that is for the team that was supposed to be the clear-cut #1 in the country. There's just no excuse.
Right, and I agree. I think that this team, no matter who they're playing, no matter what their record, if they played Syracuse and lost by 30 points, I still think that's inexcusable. However, I think that it takes away a little bit of the sting from the loss after seeing Florida State beat Duke. And then for me, after seeing the effort in the second half against Virginia Tech, I feel like maybe the team is starting to turn it around. Maybe that was the slap in the face the team needed to really turn things around and get the fire that they've kind of lacked all season long.
Did we not realize that Florida State has a 30-point advantage at home than on the road? So it evens out with our loss or their loss or Duke's loss to Florida State. We lose by 33, they lose by 3. So, I mean, they're even losses right there. It's just Florida State gets 30 points.
Interesting rationale.
I'm trying here.
All right, well, after that loss, it certainly rattled everyone here, all the Carolina fans. Do you still have the same expectations for this team that you did? I know it's just one game, but that was a really, really bad loss.
In terms of expectations, I would say that I still expect this team. I think the ceiling of this team is still to be a national championship level team. They still have that even with losing Dexter Strickland, they still have that talent base. However, I think that for a while, they haven't been the front runner. And they haven't been the favorite since the first week of the season, really. And that hasn't changed. This Florida State loss just cemented that they're not that dominant team that everyone expected them to be coming into the year.
I just need to see passion from this team. I mean, I still see them as Final Four to national championship level team, even with Dexter Strickland's injury. But we're going to definitely have to change things. Kendall Marshall's going to have to play better defense because in the first half against Virginia Tech, it was non-existent. They were shooting right over him. I mean, and that's inexcusable. So, I mean, if we can get him to play a little bit better defense, we'll see changes. But, I mean, it's hard to say from here on out.
Well, guys, we did lose Dexter Strickland as a team, and he, starting two-guard, wasn't giving you as much on the offensive end, but defensively was really making contributions. How good can this team be without Dexter Strickland?
I think that this team, if the right people step up, this team can be just as good as it was before, if not better. And now that's taking into account the fact that the team was playing well under its potential, in my estimation. I think this team wasn't living up to the potential it had on the floor. And if they can live up to the potential they have now on the floor, then they can be even better. I think Reggie Bullock gives you much more than Dexter does offensively. Now, you lose a lot on defense, and you lose the backup point guard role. And those are the two most crucial elements to me, is if Stillman White has to play 8 minutes a game, is he going to get eaten alive by a press? Or is he even going to be able to get the ball up the court if someone's on top of him? Or even like you saw last year against Duke, Kendall Marshall struggled to get the ball up the court when Nolan Smith was guarding him. So, I mean, imagine Stillman White under that kind of pressure. Gets kind of scary. And obviously, if Kendall were to get hurt, that would be terrible, even if you still had Dexter Strickland on the team. Assuming everyone stays healthy and people can step up, I think this team is just as talented as it was before, although it did lose one very important player.
And Reggie Bullock is supposed to be improving his defense. I mean, he's been improving it, since last year and his knee injury. So, I mean, it's important to see when that happens, if that happens. But honestly, I mean, our three-point shooting is what's killed us. Is they had pre-ACC. We shot 39% from three-point range, and now we're shooting 24%. We need to make more of our threes, and that's the responsibility of P.J. Hairston and Reggie Bullock.
And maybe them getting more minutes, maybe Reggie Bullock starting.
More confidence,
we'll get him
absolutely.
more confidence and get him into a rhythm sooner in the game, and maybe some of those woes will be relieved. Well, guys, it's time for our parting shots. Mike, we'll start with you.
U.S. women's soccer defeated Dominican Republic 14-0, and I'm absolutely okay with it. In the World Cup qualifier, they played Italy because of point differential. This year, they're not taking those chances. And hopefully, I mean, with a 14-0 victory, I don't think they'll have to take those chances because, I mean, that's huge point differential already, no matter what goes on in the remaining games, as long as they win one or two. And, from there on, we'll see what happens, but they're definitely good to go.
For me, I think that we would be absolutely remiss if we don't mention Joe Paterno's passing on the show. A great man, a great coach, by all accounts, was one of the best coaches and father figures to players over the past 60-plus years in the game of football. However, tragic end to his career at Penn State, getting fired or leaving the team, and then shortly after dying or passing away, to put it nicely. I think it's a very tragic day for college football, and it's going to be very interesting to see how Penn State handles this transition into a new head coach, and if they can separate themselves from the tragedy now that Joe Paterno's passed.
I got to go back to UNC basketball. That loss to Florida State, just absolutely inexcusable. And then their effort at Virginia Tech, not enough to prove to me that they've bounced back or woken up by any stretch of the imagination. What will prove it to me is a strong effort against rival North Carolina State when they come into the Dean Dome later this week. That is a good basketball team. They're 4-1 in the ACC. They're playing together. They can really defend and shoot the three. They can beat you in so many different ways. They have, I think, 5 scorers in double figures. They've got Scott Wood, Lorenzo Brown, C.J. Leslie, a bunch of guys that are very dangerous. So that'll be their chance to prove to me that they are back in the national title picture if they can blow out a good, solid North Carolina State team. Well, guys, that's about all the time we have on this edition of You Make the Call. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.